In this episode, we take the ideas of asymmetric cryptography and digital signatures and place them into the real-world system that makes secure web browsing, secure email, and trusted software distribution possible. That system revolves around digital certificates and public key infrastructure, PKI. You already understand that asymmetric cryptography uses public and private key pairs, and that public keys must be trusted to be useful. The big question now is, how do you know that a public key actually belongs to the organization it claims to represent? Certificates and PKI answer that question by creating a structured trust model. When you understand how certificates bind identities to public keys and how trust chains are validated, many exam scenarios about secure communication become much easier to reason through. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Let's begin with a digital certificate. A digital certificate is an electronic document that binds a public key to an identity, such as a website, organization, or individual. The certificate contains information about the subject, including its name and public key, and it is digitally signed by a trusted entity known as a certificate authority, CA. That digital signature is what gives the certificate credibility. If your system trusts the CA that signed the certificate, it can also trust the public key contained in that certificate. This trust allows secure communication to begin without you having to manually verify every key. On the exam, when you see references to verifying a website's identity or ensuring secure connections, certificates are usually central to the solution. A certificate authority, CA, is an organization responsible for issuing and signing certificates. When a company wants to secure its website, it generates a key pair and sends a request to a CA. The CA verifies the identity of the requester and, if satisfied, signs a certificate that binds the company's identity to its public key. Because the CA's own public key is widely trusted and embedded in operating systems and browsers, the certificate can be validated automatically. This is how your browser knows whether to display a secure connection indicator. If the certificate is valid and signed by a trusted CA, the connection can proceed securely. In exam questions, recognizing the role of the CA helps you understand how identity verification works at scale. Now let's connect this to the concept of a trust chain, sometimes called a chain of trust. A trust chain links a website's certificate back to a trusted root CA certificate. At the top of the chain is a root certificate that is pre-installed in operating systems or browsers. This root certificate represents a trusted authority. Below it may be one or more intermediate certificates, which are used to sign end-entity certificates like those used by websites. When your system validates a certificate, it checks each link in the chain to ensure every certificate was properly signed and that none have expired or been revoked. If any link in the chain is broken, trust fails. On the exam, if a scenario describes certificate validation problems, thinking in terms of trust chains helps you identify where the failure may be. It is important to understand that trust in PKI is hierarchical. You trust the root CA, and because you trust it, you also trust certificates it signs or authorizes through intermediates. This hierarchical trust allows secure communication on a global scale without manual key exchange between every pair of parties. However, it also means that if a root CA is compromised, the consequences can be severe because many certificates depend on that root's credibility. From a risk perspective, this illustrates how central trust anchors must be protected carefully. In exam questions involving compromise of a CA, the impact is often significant because it undermines trust across many systems. Certificates also include validity periods and revocation mechanisms. A certificate is only valid between certain dates. After it expires, it should no longer be trusted. Additionally, if a private key associated with a certificate is compromised, the certificate can be revoked before its expiration date. Systems can check revocation status through defined mechanisms to determine whether a certificate remains trustworthy. This dynamic aspect of trust supports risk management by allowing organizations to respond to key compromise events. On the exam, if a question involves a compromised private key, Revocation is often part of the correct response. Let's apply this to a practical scenario. When you visit a secure website, your browser receives the server's certificate. The browser checks that the certificate is signed by a trusted CA, verifies the trust chain up to a root certificate, ensures the certificate is within its validity period, and confirms that it matches the domain name you are visiting. If all checks pass, the browser proceeds with establishing a secure session, typically using asymmetric cryptography to exchange a symmetric session key. This entire process happens quickly and automatically, but each step is crucial for digital trust. In exam questions describing secure web communication, understanding this validation sequence helps you reason about what might go wrong. Another key concept is that certificates do not protect data by themselves. They enable trusted key exchange and authentication. Once trust is established through certificate validation, symmetric encryption is often used to protect the actual data exchange because it is more efficient. This layered process combines the strengths of asymmetric and symmetric methods. Certificates support identity verification, while symmetric encryption protects confidentiality at scale. On the exam, if a question involves protecting large amounts of data after verifying identity, the correct architecture often includes both PKI and symmetric encryption. It is also important to understand that PKI is not limited to websites. It is used in secure email, virtual private networks, code signing, and many other applications. Code signing certificates, for example, allow users to verify that software was produced by a legitimate developer and has not been altered. This relies on digital signatures and trusted certificate chains. If the certificate is trusted and the signature verifies correctly, users gain confidence that the software is authentic. This protects both integrity and authenticity. In exam scenarios involving verifying the source of software or secure communication channels, certificates and PKI are often involved. From a governance perspective, managing certificates and keys is a critical responsibility. Organizations must track certificate expiration dates, protect private keys, and replace or revoke certificates when necessary. Failure to manage certificates properly can result in service outages or security breaches. For example, if a certificate expires unexpectedly, users may see warnings and be unable to connect securely. If a private key is exposed, attackers may impersonate the organization. This operational responsibility connects back to risk management and policy enforcement. Even though PKI is technical, its management requires clear processes and accountability. A common misconception is that the presence of a certificate automatically guarantees a secure system. Certificates verify identity and enable secure key exchange, but they do not guarantee that the underlying system is free from vulnerabilities. A website can have a valid certificate and still have application flaws. Therefore, certificates are one control in a broader defense in-depth strategy. On the exam, if a question suggests that a certificate alone solves all security concerns, that answer is likely incomplete. Always think in layers and consider what property is being protected. Another misconception is that users manually decide which CA to trust for every connection. In reality, trust stores are built into operating systems and browsers, containing root certificates from recognized authorities. This built-in trust model simplifies user experience, but requires careful governance to maintain integrity. If a malicious or compromised CA were added to a trust store, the security of the system could be undermined. This highlights the importance of managing trust anchors carefully. In exam questions, if you see references to trusted root stores or compromised authorities, think about how that affects the entire trust chain. To strengthen your recall, practice summarizing the flow of trust in one explanation. A certificate authority verifies identity and signs a certificate that binds a public key to that identity. Systems trust the CA's root certificate and validate the chain from the end entity certificate back to that root. If the chain is valid and the certificate is current and not revoked, secure communication can proceed. This simple summary captures the essential logic behind PKI. When you can state it clearly, you are well prepared for foundational questions about digital trust. To conclude, certificates and public key infrastructure create a scalable system for trusting public keys and verifying identity in digital communication. Certificate authorities sign certificates that bind identities to public keys, and trust chains link those certificates back to trusted root authorities. Validation includes checking signatures, expiration dates, and revocation status. PKI enables secure key exchange and supports digital signatures, while symmetric encryption protects the actual data flow. Effective certificate and key management are essential to maintaining trust and reducing risk. If you carry one decision rule from this episode, let it be this. When evaluating secure communication, ask whether the certificate can be validated through a trusted chain to a root authority, because that validation is the foundation of digital trust.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.